Hello and welcome to Primary 5 Term 2. We are going to discuss our first topic in Term 2, that is Primary 5. We are going to be having 4 topics in this term. The first is what we are having on our board, the people of the pre-colonial Uganda. After that, we shall be looking at foreign influence in Uganda. And then we shall also look at how Uganda became a nation, and finally we shall be looking at the road to independence. So these are the 4 that we are going to add on the 5 that we finished to look at, that is in term 1. So in our booklets, for us who have got the booklets, we are beginning from page 1. In case you don't have a booklet for term 2, make sure you get a copy from school because they are readily available as per now. Now, in this topic, we are going to be looking at the people of the pre-colonial Uganda. Pre-colonial means before colonialists came, of which colonialists were now under the foreigners. So you're looking at the people who had settled in Uganda before the coming of colonialists. Therefore, we need to go back to look at migration and settlement, implying that these people had to migrate from one place to another. Therefore, we are going to begin by defining migration. Migration, we define it as the movement of people. Migration is the movement of people from one place to another. And the reason is looking for a better settlement. That is the definition of migration. Migration is the movement of people from one place to another looking for, then we shall have a better settlement here. Which means that we are going to be looking at the different people who migrated from different parts of Africa coming into Uganda. And of course we need to note that we are going to be looking at those people forming what we call the ethnic groups. So if we have our map of Uganda like this, we are going to be looking at those people who migrated from their different parts coming to Uganda. Of course, these ones, we are going to be looking at what we call early migration. Now, we're looking at the movement of people during those days. So, before the coming of the colonialists, we need to note that there are people who migrated from different parts of Africa into Uganda. Those people form what we call the ethnic groups. So we are going to have these ethnic groups migrating. We are going to have these ethnic groups migrating from one place to another. Then we need to first note, what do we mean by an ethnic group? An ethnic group, we simply define it as a group of people. An ethnic group is a group of people who have the same origin, and speak. These people have got the same origin and they speak related languages. They speak related languages. Therefore, we are going to be looking at, there are things that we need to note here. We have characteristics of an ethnic group. Now, the characteristics of an ethnic group, we are looking at things which are common with these ethnic groups. What we need to note is, the first thing in common is, these people, an ethnic group has the same origin, as we have heard here in the definition. A group of people who have the same origin. So, an ethnic group has the same origin. It has the same origin. That is the first characteristic. Characteristic number 2, you will find that this ethnic group has got languages spoken, and these languages are related. We had it here. And speak related languages. It has related, that we call similar. We can choose one. We can say similar or related languages. And then, an ethnic group has got the same, it has the same occupation. It has the same occupation. That is what we take as the activity or the major activity practiced. And then, this ethnic group has got the same political setup. Has the same political setup. So these are some of the characteristics of an ethnic group. Now, having looked at the characteristics or things which are common in an ethnic group, we are now going to look at which were these ethnic groups that came to Uganda. That is our next heading. Examples of ethnic groups. Examples of ethnic groups that came to Uganda. We are simply saying in Uganda. So, who are these groups? We have one, we are going to look at the Bantu. 2, we are going to look at the Nilotics. 3, we are going to look at Nilo-Hamites. Then 4, we shall also have what we call the Hamites. And lastly, we shall have what we call the Sudanic people. Sudanic people. So I believe you are following your book, and we are together. We are on page 2 now. That's where we have reached. That's the one which has got this. So on page 2, they give us the Bantu, the Hamites, and then they have given you Nilotes. Now, there is something I want you to note about those Nilotes. The Nilotes are the ones that form these 3. We have from these Nilotics that we can also call River Lake Nilotes. I want you to get this well. We also call this Nilotics, River Lake Nilotes. I believe you are now seeing the word Nilotes here. Then we have the Nilo-Hamites that we can also call plain Nilotes. Still we are having Nilotes. Then the last one are these that we call the Hamites. That, these ones are different, but we would have what we call the Highland Nilotes. We would have the Highland Nilotes here. So, meaning that those are the subgroups which are under the Nilotes. There are 4. We are going to look at these ethnic groups one by one, understanding them in detail. And what I want you to note is, Number one, we are going to look at the origin of that ethnic group. After understanding the origin, we are going to look at what was the major occupation. That is the second point. The third one, we are going to look at direction of entry. Direction of entry. Here we are meaning direction of entry into where? Uganda. Which means which direction did this ethnic group take to enter where? Uganda. Then after that, we shall be looking at tribes. Which tribes in Uganda fall under that ethnic group? And then after understanding the tribes, we shall now come to look at reasons. Which reasons? For them migrating. Meaning, why were these people migrating? We shall call those reasons for migration. So, those are the things that we are going to be basically looking at in each of these ethnic groups. Then, if that's the case, then we get on board. We are picking the first one, the Bantu. So, what we shall be saying is the Bantu. We are going to be following this list here. We say we need to understand the origin. This origin is what we can also call the cradle land. Cradle land. Or sometimes we can simply call it homeland. So we can also call it homeland. Which means, where did they come from? Where did they come from? Where were they living before they came to Uganda? So we are going to begin, and we are on the Bantu. So we are saying the Bantu came from, that is now the origin, the Bantu came from the Cameroon Highlands. Cameroon Highlands. This is in West Africa. The Bantu came from the Cameroon Highlands. So we have got the origin. Next, occupation. Occupation simply means which was the major work that they were doing. Which activity were they mainly carrying out, for survival, for them to survive. But before we look at that, there is a brief history we need to hear about the Bantu. We shall be saying the Bantu are the people who came from the Cameroon Highlands, and we shall also be able to understand that this Bantu have got a common dialect, as in when they are talking, there are common words that this Bantu tribes have. For example, we have the word that we have the root word called Ntu. We shall say Bantu are people who have they have the common root word Ntu that is in their languages as they speak, and this word is a word which is used to form other words. You will find that from this Ntu they can have something attached behind here, that is a prefix Ntu. The Ntu is here, and from somewhere, from there we can have Chintu, a Chintu. So this Ntu is the common root word which is pronounced in the Bantu languages to mean either a person or something, like we are having here Ntu. And when we add this, it becomes a Chintu, which means something. Or they can add in that Ntu, they can add Mu to form Muntu from the word Omuntu. So we need to note that this word Bantu simply now refers to the plural form now of one, that is people. So if you are asked as a P5 child, what does the term Bantu refer to? Simply say the word Bantu means people, as simple as that. These are the people who have a common root word in their language, ntu, which is used when referring to either something or a person. So we have got the origin. Next, occupation. And I've said the occupation is the activity that this ethnic group was mainly practicing. And for the Bantu, we say these people were crop growers, they were crop farmers. Don't just say farming, because if you say farming, farming has other things in it. You will find there are other farm systems. So you need to be very specific. These ones were mainly dealing with growing crops. That's what we call cultivation. So the occupation of the Bantu was cultivation. That is the activity. Don't say they were crop growers. That's not the activity. Don't say they were cultivators. That's not the activity. Mention the exact activity. The activity was cultivation. We continue. Which direction did they enter when entering Uganda? Now here, we shall need to have our map to guide us. We are having a map of Uganda to show us which direction did this Bantu take while entering Uganda. So we shall say that this Bantu entered Uganda through the western direction. They came from the Cameroon highlands. They passed via, this is a neighboring country to Uganda called Democratic Republic of Congo. So there is something I want you to note. They did not come from Congo, but they entered Uganda through Congo. That does not mean that they had started their journey from Congo. I say they came from the Cameroon highlands, they passed via Congo and entered where? Uganda. Through which direction? Western direction. So we have got the direction of entry into Uganda. Direction western direction. We continue. Which tribes are under the Bantu? Oh my God, there are very many tribes. Remember, this Bantu form the largest ethnic group in Uganda, which means they have very many tribes, and we are going to be looking at that here. So we are looking at the tribes now under the Bantu. Tribes under the Bantu. So, like I said, the Bantu forms the largest ethnic group in Uganda. Therefore, even in the tribes, we have the largest tribe, that is Baganda. Baganda. This is now a tribe, a group of people who speak the same language. Baganda, who speak the language we call Luganda. Then we shall have Basoga. We shall have Bachiga. We have Bagisu, that is in eastern Uganda. Then we have the Bagwere. Bagwere. We shall add others. We shall have the Basamia. We shall add the Bakonzo, that we can also call the Bakonjo. We shall have the Banyankore. Banyankore. We shall have the Batoro. We shall have the Banyoro. Oh my God, there are very many, and others that we cannot manage to bring all. So all these tribes form the ethnic group. They are under this Bantu, meaning these are the Bantu tribes. If the question asked you for the Bantu languages, just note that which tribe, which language is spoken by this. Like we have the Baganda, which language? Luganda. Basoga, which language? Lusoga. Bachiga, Ruchiga. Bagisu, Lugishu. We have Bagwere speaking Lugwere, Basamia speaking Lusamia, Bakonzo, Lukonzo, Banyankore speaking Runyankore, Batoro, Rutoro. As simple as that. So all those are under the ethnic groups. I mean, in the Bantu ethnic group, we go to the next, which is reasons for migration. Now, when it comes to these ethnic groups, the major reason, what we take as the major reason, is good from the occupation. Like we have identified, the occupation of this Bantu was cultivation. Therefore, what must have forced them to leave their cradleland, to leave Cameroon highlands? Now, since these people were dealing with growing crops, it means that one of the major reasons, let's have the heading, reasons for migration. I say, since these people were dealing with growing crops, as I told you, when the question is asking for the occupation or the economic activity, you mention the activity. Don't describe them by saying they were crop growers, they were growing crops, they were cultivators. No, that is not the activity. Mention the activity, crop growing or cultivation. So, for that matter, we shall be able to come up with a mind that since these people were crop growers, it means that when they were moving, they were having in mind that they were looking for, areas with fertile soil to grow the crops. So the first reason we shall have here is these Bantu were migrating, looking for fertile soil for crop growing. That is our first reason that we need to give. And then also, since they were growing crops, we also need to note that these people became overpopulated. So we call that overpopulation, meaning that some people lacked free land or some space to grow their crops. As a result, they had to move, looking for areas which were free for them to begin growing their crops. So they became overpopulated. And then we also had these people suffering from the problem of drought. They had floods that affected them. And then there is also what we call, I don't want to wrap this, we shall come back to this. We shall come to this side that we can add them here. We have looked at drought, floods, and the other problem they faced was they had what we call wars. Wars can be in two. Can be internal wars and or it can be external. External wars meaning that some communities attacked them from where they used to live. Or internal wars mean that they had conflicts themselves. They were fighting against themselves, fighting each other. And as a result, the ones who are weakened up had to run away. That is to look for other free areas to occupy. Then, some of the Bantu migrated due to what we call love for adventure. Due to love for adventure. They wanted to discover what was in other parts of the world. They wanted to find out more. So they ended up migrating, want to see. And lastly, we also need to note that some Bantu people migrated due to what we call influence. Due to influence. Someone who does something due to influence means that this person did not have this in the program or did not want to do something because you have seen someone doing it, you have seen a friend doing it, you also end up being influenced. That's what we call due to influence. An example is when you are in class, you will find your friend goes to the teacher, please teacher, may I go out? And the teacher gives the person permission to go. But because this is your friend, you want to be with a friend. I know there are some of you who also do that. You also go to the teacher and say, please teacher, may I also go out? Even if you don't feel like to ease yourself, but because you have seen your friend going out, so you also want to be like him or her, you also want to join, so you also have to go and deceive the teacher, like the teacher that you want to go and ease, and when the teacher gives you permission, you go and you begin and you just waste time like that. So that's what they call moving due to influence. Someone made you also to change your mind and you're like, you also go. Implying that there were some people who could, like, they are in their houses, they are in their homes, then early in the morning, you are seeing people passing. People are coming with their luggage on their heads and they are moving. And like, hey, where are you going? Wait for me also. Where are you going? Oh, we are going to, for us, we are living here. We are going to look for other areas to spy. Oh, wait for me also. Someone could run inside, packs the mattress, ties it, puts on the head, we go. So that is what we call migrating due to influence, something that you did not have in mind. So, having looked at these reasons for migration, this Bantu also had got problems. They had problems when they were migrating. We shall just discuss this. Problem number one, they had some tribes that they could pass via their areas and they could fight with them. So some tribes fought them, so they made some resistance, hatred or attacks from some tribes. Then also, of course, as they were moving, remember they were using road, moving on foot on road, and by that time there were no these roads that we see today. So they could pass via thick forests and so on. So you could find that as they pass via an area which is a forest, they could get attacked by some of these fierce animals, and some of them were eaten up by these lions, the tigers, the zebra, these leopards and so on. And then also the other problem is they had a problem of shortage of food supplies. Remember, you move now when you are on the way and your food gets done, you find that they had that challenge now of lack of enough food and water to eat and drink on the way. And also we had a problem of tropical diseases. Some of them had diseases as they were moving on the way. Others could fall sick like that, which could make some of them to die. So for that case, we shall be able to go and look at what were the effects of the Bantu coming. I want you to get this lesson very well, because this lesson is that lesson that will enable you to enjoy primary 5 class. Every question coming from this topic becomes very simple for you to answer. And you will find that even when you continue, remember, these things will keep on asking and they will keep on coming up to P7. So you don't have to say that that one is for only P5. No, this work we are discussing is good for all the upper classes. So the effects of the Bantu coming into Uganda, we can group them into two. We have those good ones and then we have the bad ones. The good ones, we can simply call them positive effects. Positive effects. Whereas the bad ones, obviously, we shall be calling them negative effects. Let's begin with positive effects, which means how was the coming of the Bantu good to the people of Uganda? So we shall be able to tell that since these Bantu were crop growers, they were crop farmers, it means that they had come with new crops that they wanted now to grow when they get those fertile areas. So we shall say the Bantu introduced new crops. That was not enough. They were farmers. And it simply means that they also had some farming methods. For example, we shall say that the Bantu introduced the idea of adding using cow dung as manure. So we shall say they introduced new farming methods. They introduced new farming methods. Then the third one is, this Bantu also introduced the idea we can simply say they introduced a new system of governance. That is what we call monarchy. They call it monarchy. They introduced centralized monarchy. Centralized monarchy. Centralized monarchy, we are looking at kingship. Kingship or kingdomship. Let me bring it like this. Kingdomship. Meaning they brought that setup of having a king. Monarchy deals with having a traditional leader given or the final power or the overall power as the one with the highest authority in that area. So these people introduced the idea of kingdoms. That's why you find that when they came, they settled, they formed Buganda Kingdom, that was for the Baganda. They had the Ankole Kingdom, that was for the Banyankole. They had the Toro Kingdom, that was for the Batoro. They had the Bunyoro Kingdom, that was for the Banyoro. So they introduced that idea of kingdomship. And then also, due to this idea, they introduced what we call regalia. They introduced regalia of kingship. Regalia of kingship, we mean these items used at the royal palace. Like we have the spears, we have the royal skin, we have the drums. Those are the ones, among others, that we call regalia. And then also, we shall also be moving to look at the negative effects. Much as their coming was good, they brought these good things. We are also going to look at the bad side of the coming of these people. Now, here we shall say that before the Bantu came to Uganda, in Uganda were the people who had already settled. There were people who had lived in Uganda who were called the Bushmen. We are now looking at the negative effects. So, when these Bantu people came, you will find that these people displaced the original inhabitants that we have called the Bushmen. It means that when they came, they chased away. Remember, they were looking for areas to settle. So when they came, they found the Bushmen. They are like, these ones are wasting time. Go away. And they chased them away as they settled in that area, which was something which was bad. That was something which was bad. So the coming of the Bantu led to the displacement of the original inhabitants. We are looking at the original settlers, people who were the owners of Uganda. We call them the Bushmen. These were the people who are living a life of mainly hunting and gathering wild fruits in the forest, in the bushes. So when this Bantu came, they chased these people. Second one, these people led to overpopulation. They increased on the number of people. They increased on the number of people in Uganda. So we had overpopulation now. That was also something which was not good. The number going too high, it's not safe for a country because it leads to exhaustion of resources. And then the third one is the Bantu led to wars. Or we say they caused wars. They caused wars in areas they passed. In areas they passed. So, which means that as they were looking for areas to settle, when they could come across some areas, they had also to fight those people who were living there, and they chased them away, and then they settled there. And as they were to go for such wars, for such fights, as they had to chase them, they could exchange. And if they defeated them, then the other ones were chased. So that was also another negative effect of the coming of the Bantu into Uganda. Next is, we are going to be discussing about the next ethnic group, that is about the Nilotes. So, we are going to look at the next ethnic group, and we say in this group of Nilotes, we are going to cover 3. And we talked of the River Lake Nilotes. I want you also to have that. We have the River Lake Nilotes that we talked of when we were beginning the lesson. We call them Nilotics. So in this group we have Nilotics. Then we have Nilohamites. And then we shall be having Highland Nilotes. Highland Nilotes. Okay, so here we are going to look at the first group, that is the Nilotics, that we shall simply say we shall be following the same list that we had the other time. So the first subgroup in the Nilotes is that of the Nilotics, that we have also called the River Lake Nilotes. Now, the word Nilotics simply means people who lived along the Nile Valley. People who lived along the Nile Valley. Which means that if we have our Nile beginning flowing from Uganda, that is from Lake Victoria here. So we are going to have this Nile flowing, it goes up to this Lake Albert, the Nile continues and it goes up to Egypt. Which means these people are the ones who loved living along this river. And not only this, but even we call them River Lake Nilotes because they liked living along lakes and rivers. And the purpose, if they ask you why do they like living there, we are actually having 2 main answers. One, those areas are for fishing activities, and then they also have pasture for their animals. Remember, we are following origin. These people came from a place in South Sudan that was called Bahr el Ghazal. Bahr el Ghazal. In South Sudan. Bahr el Ghazal. Then we go to the next occupation. What was their main occupation? Now what we need to note is these Nilotes were nomadic pastoralists who liked keeping large numbers of cattle, moving from one place to another. Sometimes we call that cattle keeping. So their activity was cattle keeping, that we can call nomadic pastoralism, moving with the cattle from one place to another, looking for water and pasture. That is Nilotes, which means whether Nilotics, Nilohamites, or Hamites, and also these Highland Nilotes, the same economic activity, cattle keeping. The next we are following is direction of entry. Direction of entry into Uganda. Which direction did they take? Now here we are going to have, we say they came from a place in South Sudan which was called Bahr el Ghazal, and they moved southwards. They are moving southwards means they are now entering Uganda through the north. If we put a compass direction here, we shall find that this is the northern part of Uganda. So it means that these people entered Uganda through the north or through the northern direction, and they settled here. So direction of entry, northern Uganda, northern direction. Northern direction. We are continuing. Tribes. Now, before I come to tribes, there is something I want to share with you. That takes us back to our lesson that we learned in the downer classes as down as primary 3. I remember you learned about the legend of the spear and the bead. That is the legend of Gipir and Nabongo. So these are the people, this is the group we are talking about. If you have that story, then this group, these people, these Nilotics were led into Uganda by those two strong brothers. That was Gipir and Labongo. And because of that misunderstanding that we understood, one failing or refusing to forgive the other, the two could no longer continue living, so they had to separate. Therefore, Gipir, who made Labongo to kill the daughter in order to recover the bead, I believe you remember that story, is now the one who got fear, who developed fear. It was like, I cannot continue living with this brother of mine. Remember, before the separation, we need to note that these people had rested here. They had settled in this area. This is what was known as Pubungu. It was known as Pubungu. And be ready for a question asking you, how was Pubungu related to the migration of the Nilotics? You simply say, Pubungu is where the Nilotics had their first settlement when they entered where? Uganda. Now, from Pubungu, because of the separation, we are saying Gipir crossed this Nile, this river Nile flowing. So Gipir had to cross the Nile with his people. He moved with some people, with some animals, and so on, to this part of Uganda. This part is found in the western part of the Nile. That's why we call it the West Nile region. There are people who were living there who were called the Lendu. Now, we have what we call intermarriages. Intermarriages meaning the people who moved with Gipir had to cross to marry the women from the Lendu, and also the Lendu men marrying the women from Gipir's side. And because of that intermarriage, you will find that these people gave rise to a new tribe, a new group of people that we call the Alur. That group of people is found in West Nile. So when it comes to the tribes, we have got the first one, Alur. And then we have Labongo remaining, forming the Acholi. Forming the Acholi. We have one group that crossed up to as far as Tororo district. These ones form what we call the Jopadola. Jopadola. So for that we shall have those three tribes. And then we had one group that crossed to Bunyoro. By then there was a very big kingdom which was called Bunyoro Kitara Kingdom. They crossed there with their people. This group was led by Isigoma Ruchidi Mpuga and his brother Katoki Mera. When they reached Bunyoro Kitara Kingdom, they led to its collapse. And they founded, or they started a new ruling dynasty that we call the Luo Babito dynasty. Remember, these people here are the ones that we can also call the Luo. So we would also have here Luo. Sometimes they are called Luo speakers. Or simply we say Luo, meaning these people speak Luo languages. The Luo languages are these ones here. It's like saying Bantu languages. There are very many languages spoken in that Bantu ethnic group. We talked of Luganda, Lusoga, Nyankore, and so on. We can't again go to that. So that was about the Nilotics. Next group, if we have understood this, I want to wrap these other internal movements, and I only leave the one which was coming. I am wrapping also Pubungu. We had the first group here, which we said entered through the western, that was the Bantu, which means if we had our key here, we are going to form a key, and we shall say when we see a map like some arrow like this, that one is telling us that that group was for the Bantu, that we say they entered through the west. Now we have also had this, that we are saying it entered through the northern direction. So we have this kind of an arrow which shows Nilotics. We are going to look at another group that was the one that entered through this direction. We can show it like this. This is the group that we call Nilohamites. So in our key, we shall have it like this, and we shall say those were Nilohamites. Nilohamites, the origin, Ethiopia. Let's begin here fresh. The second one was Nilohamites. We shall be following the same. Origin, Ethiopia. Occupation, we say it is the same. It's part of the Nilos. Direction of entry, this was north, this one is now northeastern. Direction, northeastern direction. Then the tribes. The tribes, here we shall be having tribes like the Karimojong, we have the Iteso, we shall have Kumam, and finally we shall have the Lani. So those are the tribes that form these Nilohamites, or the plain Nilos, as an example, or under the Nilos as an ethnic group. And then we have those that came and settled on the slopes of mountains. They are the ones that we call the highland Nilos. Like we have the Sabine. We have the Sabine. We have the Sabine. This one is for the highland Nilos. We have the Sabine, who live in Sebei as a sub-region. The people are the ones we call Sabine. Then lastly, we shall have another ethnic group that came, I think maybe let me use this kind of drawing, such that we are able to get the difference between this and this. So I have used this one, twisting. There is one which came through the southwestern. If we put a compass here, this will be southwest, between south and west, southwestern. So this one entered through the southwestern direction. That is the one that we call, it was like this. This is the one we call the Hamites. They had also come from Ethiopian highlands and had settled in some there before coming to Uganda. So they entered Uganda through Rwanda. You can be asked that question, on which country did they pass before or as they were entering Uganda. So that is what we can have as for the Bantu, that is for the Nilots. Now, when we go to look at the reasons for migration, we are going to have general reasons for migration, because we have had these groups are in one. So the reasons for the Nilots, Nilotics, are the very reasons for the Hamites. They are the very reasons for the Nilohamites. They are the very reasons for the Highland Nilots. Remember, all these other ones were cattle keepers, apart from the Bantu. So if they were cattle keepers, then it means that the first reason for us to think of was that they were looking for areas with pasture and water to graze their animals. Then secondly, these people also had diseases, animal diseases, in their homelands, so they were running away with their animals because they were dying of those diseases. And then they experienced drought, which made them to lack where to graze their animals, which the drought dried all the grass that the animals were to eat. And then also, we can also talk of the diseases, the wars happening amongst themselves, and others had to run, that is to other areas. We also need to look at the effects of the coming of these people. The effects are not all that very different from those of the Bantu. We have the positive and the negative still. The positive effects, here we shall be looking at, here we shall not have again them introducing new crops because they were not crop growers, but since they were nomadic pastoralists, we shall say they introduced new breeds of cattle, meaning they brought in more cattle as they were coming. And then apart from that, they also brought in more culture, like more beads. They introduced, or they increased on the number of beads, or they brought more beads, you can simply say like that. You'll find that these tribes here, the ones you have mentioned, the Alur, the Choli, the Karimojons, those are the tribes that like beads. So you'll find that they had beads, they introduced more beads. Coming to the negative effects, still we shall look at the same. We say they led to overpopulation in the country, and then of course where they also settled, they had to chase the original inhabitants who were settled there. Those are the ones that we call the Bushmen. And then finally, we need also to note that these tribes, some of these tribes that we have listed, we say that at that time they were nomadic pastoralists, meaning they were cattle keepers. But as per now, as we speak today, you will find that the Iteso are no longer nomadic pastoralists. The Kumam are no longer. The Langit are no longer. So for that case, we need to give reasons as to why some people changed. Reasons as to why some pastoral tribes, we can either call them pastoral tribes or pastoral communities, why they changed from nomadic pastoralism into mixed farming. So they are the ones that we are going to be looking at now. Reasons as to why some pastoral tribes changed into mixed farming. We are going to be looking at those reasons as we end our lesson. So we are going to suggest what must have made these people to stop looking after large numbers of cattle, or to stop moving from one place to another looking for water and pasture, and they settle to grow crops as they keep some animals. So the first one is, these people lost most of their animals. When they came to Uganda, most of their animals died. So we can have that as death of their animals. So when the animals reduced in number, they could no longer continue moving, but they could now keep on tying the few remaining in the nearby compound. Then two, these people were able to adopt. They adopted crop growing from the tribes that they settled with. Mainly, those were the Bantu that had already settled there. Remember, we said the Bantu were the first to come to Uganda. So, for that case, we shall say, by the time these other people came, there were some Bantu tribes already that had spread to very many parts. And when they settled near them, they were able to learn growing crops from them. So, we are saying they adopted crop growing from the Bantu tribes. As a result, they also tried growing crops, and they saw it was better than moving from one place to another. So they also started like that. And then there was also a problem of cattle rustling. cattle rustling. Cattle rustling simply means theft of cattle. They could, like when you look at the Karimonjongs and the Iteso, you could find that the Karimonjongs would attack the Iteso, they take most of their cows. Cattle rustling simply means theft of cattle. And as a result, they remained with a few and they gave up on moving from one place to another. So they had to resort to growing crops while rearing a few of them. And finally, these people also settled in areas that had fertile soils. They settled in areas that had fertile soil. So those are, among others, the reasons that made these people to change from being nomadic pastoralists into mixed farmers. For now, thank you so much for viewing this lesson. I wish you the best and may God bless you.